Thanks, Corey. Call the meeting of the Hawarden, Iowa City Council to order on Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019 at 5:31 p.m. All present are staff and council other than Councilman Tim Kurth. So, and we're really pleased to see to my left, Rob is back.
Thank you.
We're pleased that we're really pleased that you're here and feeling better. So last couple weeks ago it wasn't the same. So
No.
Great. We're glad you're here. If you want to address the council, as most of you know that are here, you can address the council on open business from the community at number 1C. The standard agenda item is the approval of the January 9th, 2019 City Council meeting minutes, and you folks have had those in your packet.
So moved.
There's been a motion by Travis. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jen. Any questions or clarifications with the minutes? All in favor then of the January 9th, 2019 City Council meeting minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That passes 4-0. Next is the claims for payment for this evening. I'll start with Travis with any questions.
None, thank you.
Okay. John?
None, thanks.
Jen, questions?
No questions.
Okay. Rob?
No questions.
Hearing no questions, I'd entertain a motion for approval of the claims for payment.
So move.
Moved by John. Is there a second?
A second.
Seconded by Jen. All in favor of claims for payment for January 23rd, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, that again passes 4-0. Open business from the community. We'll move on to the mayor's report, if we may. I'd like to remind everyone that the annual Hawarden Fire Department Ball is this Saturday, the 26th. This is an opportunity for everyone to financially support the department and to thank the members for their commitment to safety in our community. I want to congratulate the students at West Sioux that did very well at their speech competition last Saturday. We are excited for your accomplishments. Mike and I had the opportunity to meet with Corey Nelson. Corey is the CEO of Sioux Center Health. We had a nice discussion about their acquisition of Dr. Monty Harvey's medical office and visited with Corey about their thoughts of being an active participant in our community. Mike and I also had a meeting with 3 members from the Sioux County Youth Fair Board. We gave them information about Hawarden and the opportunities that we feel that could help enhance their fair if they were to locate here. Our hopes are that they we'll be able to have further conversations with them as they look at their options for relocating the fairgrounds from their present location in Sioux Center. Our thanks to the many committee members that continue to meet as a part of the community visioning process. We appreciate your energy and look forward to your ideas. Visiting with Mike, a number of the committees have met recently and given Mike updates with that. So we are very appreciative that that energy and the thought process is continuing even after the visioning evening we've held. And last week, Governor Kim Reynolds and Lieutenant Governor Adam Gregg took their oath of office. We congratulate them, and our community is very proud of Mr. Adam Gregg and his position with the state. We'll move on, if we may, with staff reports. We'll start with Corey, please, Chief of Police.
Thank you. Right now we're getting Ethan acquainted with all the ins and outs of the police department, getting him ready to get out on the road by himself and with other officers. He's been doing very well through his FTO process, been asking questions that he's needed to. And we're very optimistic that he's going to be a good asset to the community. So that's really nice to see. We're also compiling all of our data from the 2018 year, and we should have those numbers at the next council meeting as far as our arrests and citations, stuff like that. Give you guys kind of an idea how last year went. So other than that, it's just business as usual.
Okay. Thanks so much for bringing Ethan up to meet council members tonight. I think that's very important. Is there kind of a standard timeline when they do their training with you before they get to go on their own?
Yeah, we have a full field training packet that they must complete and show certain proficiencies in different things before we allow them to go out and be on their own. So as soon as each person's different, but as soon as they're done with their packet, we feel confident to send them out there. That's when we let them go.
And if you could give me just, or give all of us kind of an overview of what that packet training might consist of?
Sure. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable in and out of the vehicle with their equipment, have good working knowledge of the different laws and the ordinances that we have locally. We also want them to, understand the road systems in and out of Hawarden. We also have Ireton as well, so we make sure they're aware of that area. And just as far as different policies and procedures that the city has and that the department has themselves. And once they realize that, they kind of get to go out and get their feet wet a little bit on their own. And it's kind of neat watching them because it's baby steps at first, and you get to watch them grow along with everything and kind of it's nice to be a part of that. And hopefully, they do the right things and become great officers, and that's what we look forward to.
And then they also get the opportunity to meet the other officers on the next level, like with the Sheriff's Department of Sioux County and
Yep, we make sure that
Howard
they
Department.
get over to the sheriff's office, meet as much staff over there as they possibly can, also with the court systems. And you'll probably see most of the new guys at the basketball games and stuff like that, because to me, it's not just being a police officer, it's about being a part of the community. So I want them to be involved in all the different activities that we have and get out and shake hands and say hello to as many people as they can, because, that's who we work with, so.
Great. Thanks for that, and thanks for that update. Appreciate that information. Mr. Pickner, anything from the city attorney-wise?
No, nothing to report.
Hey, appreciate that, I think. Jacob, how about financials?
Well, and since the last meeting, with the help of all of our staff, we've been able to put together some of the general funds for you guys' review, and then we've got kind of went down a little bit more on all of our utility funds, so we'll be able to discuss that later.
Okay, and software types of things are going pretty well?
They're going very well.
Okay, good. Thank you. Travis, Department of Public Works.
I just want to talk about the the wet tax for our water. In July 1st, 2018, it was switched from a 7% local sales tax to 6% wet tax, which helps the state take that money and then use it for water quality projects throughout the state. And at the beginning of this year, so January 1st, it had to be itemized on our bill to show that it was a wet tax and not included in with the sales tax. So people might see that on their bill, and it's listed as ET because we only have 2 letters to use, and the W is WA, highly used through the software. So we chose ET, so you'll just see that on your bill that it's extra, or it's a tax on your water. So, and it's 6% now, and it was 7% sales tax before, so it's actually less than what it was last year.
So
Any
not really ET
questions?
for extra tax.
Yeah.
Different taxing mechanism. All right. Mike DeBryan, City Administrator.
Tomorrow, some folks from Sioux Center are coming over to explain the new expo building that they want to put up just north of Sioux Center. So they're going to come over, we're going to talk about that. They may come at some point and make a presentation to council with that. So I think they're fundraising for the building right now. They also view that as a possible place for the fair to go as well. So we'll meet with them tomorrow. Otherwise, it's just business as usual.
Council members have any questions for staff members this evening? All right, we'll delve into more of the budget items. Budget review contributed to by the general fund. These numbers have been in our packets for a number of weeks, and it was informational. These are, at this point, all plugged into the projected budget. did have a question on, I think we talked, Mike, about the helipad insurance, $1,846. Jason was maybe looking at that to be a part of the hospital's budgeting perhaps, but
Yeah, in conversations with Jason at the hospital, they're looking into the cost of it. They filled out the paperwork and sent it to the insurance company. They kind of want to know what the cost would be for them, if it'd be the same. They haven't expressed an interest that they may be able to take that over, since obviously they're the ones that use the helipad. It's for them. So he's been fairly cooperative in that endeavor.
Then I had a question on the rides. I know in our notations, the donation to offset the rides is an $8,000 cost, but we're thankful for someone giving us a private donation in that regard.
For the last several years, we've had one donor in Hawarden that's brought in $2,000 every year to offset that cost. So there may be some changes with rides coming. They are concerned a little bit with Ray is going to be retiring towards the end of summer and finding a new person to, be as dedicated as he is to the rides bus. Also, I know they're having some funding difficulties, so they're just going to keep us informed on what kind of changes we may see in that.
Okay, because I know that's been a number of years ago when we were in discussions with budget, we were asking for kind of how many people are participating in those types of things, so.
Correct. Our numbers on the rides hasn't really increased over the years. They're averaging maybe a couple a day. So, it's not, we'd like to see it used a lot more than what it is, to both to show the numbers that it's a need here, as well as they have to pay $2 to use the rides bus, and it, every dollar helps, and that goes directly to rides, so.
And for a new council, that's come out of Spencer.
Yes, rides is out of the Spencer office.
And so if there are changes down the road, obviously with these numbers that are budgeted in already, we'll just see what happens
Correct.
with their
They'll
finances and what
change.
happens. Okay. We've talked about these budgets quite a bit. Any concerns with these, or should we continue with that and move into the next upcoming projects, or anybody want to see any changes in these before we move on?
Oh.
Pretty quiet, pretty comfortable with all of that? Okay. All right, and we'll be talking obviously more fully about general fund budget. These numbers will be located in those, and that'll be will be introduced at those tonight, but we'll get into the heart of those or so forth at the next meeting. So Mike and Travis have prepared, we'll move on to agenda item number 4 then at this point, has prepared some city council notes for tonight in regards to maybe some upcoming projects. And so we'll pass this on then to Travis and Mike, please. These are some great projects that we would anticipate.
Just an update on the wastewater project. DGR is in the facility design phase right now, and that'll be completed in the spring with bidding occurring shortly after, with construction starting right away. And we anticipate a December 2019 ending for the construction. So,
One thing to note with this is we had D.A. Davidson do projections for us on what we would have to raise our rates to. After going through the budgeting this year, the state getting revolving loan fund monies, we have to budget 10% over our costs. And so the numbers that we originally had just weren't working. So we had them refigure, and we were looking at a $27 base with a $2 per 100 cubic foot usage charge. And realistically going to be looking at closer to a $30 base charge with a $225 per 100 cubic foot. And all of those final amounts will be rectified once we know what the bids are. So could be if we can get it less than that, we will. Hopefully it won't be any more than that.
As DGR, they pretty hopeful to get a number of bids, so it'll be pretty competitive. Have they given you any indication at this point?
Yes, they've done quite a few other wastewater projects, and they've had 2 to 3 bids, construction bids on each one, so.
And also early on, we kind of had a timeline for the wastewater treatment project. I don't have those in front of me.
We're right on schedule.
We're right on
Yep.
schedule with that?
Correct.
Okay, good. Okay. New transmission line into town.
Just another update on where we're at with this project and a little history. The transmission line is a tie between Northwest Iowa Power Cooperative, where we get our electricity, and the Hawarden substation, and then from there it goes out to our system. We're in the construction phase of that also, with that'll be completed in the spring, and bidding would be shortly after, but due to the lead time on the material and then the work that REC has to do, because they'll have some underbuild on part of that line, the construction is pushed back till this fall, but it should be completed within 30 to 60 days from start to finish, so. And that's right on schedule is what we predicted.
And cost-wise, they don't give that away, do they, so to speak?
No, there's considerable expense with the higher poles, the bigger they are, and
Exactly, yep. While we're talking about electricity, we'll talk about the south feeder loop, and then I know our electric project has been going very nicely with our community, so give us a little update on that, if you would, please.
the south feeder right now is currently all overhead, and it's a radial feed, so it means it has one source and it ends. If one part goes down, it's all down until we get that fixed. So this is just the next phase of changing the overhead to underground, and this is the next area. That'd be everything south of the dry creek. Right now, we'd like to looking at engineering this late summer, fall, and hopefully continue into construction next year.
And this project obviously would take, obviously, outside construction crew to do the boring and... all
Yes,
those
same as
things.
we've done in the past.
It's above our capabilities at this point for this
It would
project.
just take us too long.
Okay. Dry Creek Utility Crossing?
This came up about a year ago when the DOT met with Tom and told him that the bridge, Highway 12 bridge by Line and Implement, will be getting resurfaced and overlay. And we have natural gas line on the bridge itself and a force main sewer main on there as well. So we needed to bore under the levee, those two lines, to get them off the bridge so construction could commence. So we've in the engineering phase of that also. And while we're gonna do the boring for natural gas and sewer main, we're gonna add 3 electric conduits under there as well. So we're ready to go for that south feeder phase as well.
Does the Army Corps have to get involved in that at all?
Yes,
Engineer has to do all the
Yep.
permitting through them, and
and the highway and the railroad, because the sewer crosses the railroad as well.
Are they on the west side or the east side of the road there?
Well, it goes on the bridge and then they cross the railroad. We're gonna try and bore past one manhole to the next. That way it'll just eliminate one really old gravity feed. So that'll get us to the other side of the railroad. Basically over by Avenue D.
Okay.
Yep.
Going that way.
Yep.
So some of that might be hurry up and wait, let's get the paperwork in and all that type of...
Right, it was hurry up and get it engineered and get the permits in, and then when those are all finalized, then we can look at doing the construction on those.
Good. All of these are good projects. Next one is Main Street project.
So the projects we just talked about, those are all kind of in motion. The next projects we'll be talking about are some things that we feel that we could easily handle. So the Main Street revitalization project, we have gotten some costs on milling down Main Street, fixing some of the broken and non-existent curbs, as well as repainting some of the, or replacing the streetlights. In one of our visioning meetings is there's a downtown committee, which I'm part of, and if you look at our streetlights downtown, they're getting rusty on the bottom. They're painted halfway up, and in talking to Travis, painting them the rest of the way up is just not desirable. And there's a few of them are out that aren't going to come back on because some of the wiring and stuff underneath is no good. So just looking at this project, we kind of put some figures together of if we mill down the street, fix the curbs, and do all new street lighting in the downtown area, we're thinking somewhere in the $650,000 range. This would put the higher streetlights like we have on 10, the LEDs, the tall ones, on the side streets, as well as the decorative ones on Main Street. That we're projecting through our lighting company, we would need 4 on each side on each block, so it'd be 8 on each block, just to get the same amount of light as the higher overhead lights. So this is, we need to do some ADA crossings and things like that. So we feel that this would be a good project to look at and to consider in order to dress up our downtown and make it a lot more attractive.
What was the cost on those lights per pole? Do you remember?
Yeah. $2,500. That's without the base, so really close to 3,000 per light. And that's the decorative. The taller ones are closer to 2,000.
And either way, we're going to have to bore all new electric lines
Right.
and everything in for the new poles. Pour new patches of cement because we can't put the poles in exactly the same places as they are and things like that, so.
What about the sidewalk?
Well, where we tear out the old poles, we're going to take a base out, so we'll have to repair the sidewalk there. We won't put in all new sidewalks, though.
Okay.
Sidewalks are technically the responsibility of the adjacent business owner, but we don't look for, anything we tear out or change, we will replace, and that's all we kind of got included in that projected $650,000. We would need some engineering work for that.
This, though, would give them maybe an opportunity to, if they wish to enhance their business sidewalk, to do it at maybe a better rate than
Or maybe
just
we'd have somebody there,
doing it individually, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
And typically, when we've talked about this project, it's been a per block cost. This is total cost.
This is total cost, but when we've talked about this project before, we talked about tearing up Main Street from storefront to storefront, including sidewalks. And if you do that, then you have to pull all the utilities out that are in the ground and put all the utilities in. To do that, we'd be looking at several years ago, it was $1 million a block, and I'm sure it's gonna be, $1.5 million by now. What this does is this would allow us to put an overlay on the street, either asphalt or concrete, fix up the curbs, dress up our downtown, I guess, and hopefully get us 15 to 20 years down the road before we're looking at that, a project of that magnitude of tearing everything up.
Are there other communities that have done a lot like this?
There's other that have done overlays. I believe Rock Valley does an overlay on their concrete streets.
I think Larchwood didn't, did they?
Larchwood did their main street. In talking to the engineers this past summer, before we even were this far, we talked about an asphalt overlay like we did the alleys last year, and then the engineer that did our streets had also mentioned that concrete overlays are becoming really popular right now, and they hold up really well. Did some research on the internet on them as well. There's a lot of towns throughout the United States that have done it, and they seem to be holding up well. So
This would be another opportunity also to invite individual business owners to use the facade program and some of those types of things that we already have in place.
correct. We would have that in place, and also maybe it would instill a sense of pride back into our downtown area. If you're just driving through and you look downtown, it looks pretty rough, and so maybe just to instill a little bit of pride, and maybe it'll be catchy, and we'll all want to jump on the bandwagon.
So I know that was part of the visioning process that evening, and a lot of conversation in regards to community pride and community self-cleanup and those types of things. So
That was, on both of our visioning things when we did it back in 2011, those were both big,
those were high.
big items that, people just want to see us succeed and know we can do better with what we have than what we're doing.
And maybe with that project, we can grow that and get community members to be a part of all of that community-wide, I would hope. Anything else about the downtown project? At this time, we'll move on then to the State Revolving Loan Fund sponsor project.
The State Revolving Loan Fund Sponsor Project, we're looking at about a $3.12 million project for our wastewater plant. The State Revolving Loan Fund has a program to where you qualify for basically $100,000 for every $1 million you borrow, and that they give you that by lowering your interest rate if you participate in the project. And the project basically comes down to is they want you to improve your stormwater quality and things like that that's going into your aquifers or your watersheds. So we're actually meeting with them again tomorrow to look at different projects we can do that fit their design as well as what would benefit us. We hate to leave $300,000 laying on the table when we could get a design. One of the early projects that have been identified, both through them and us, is take like the parking lot out here. Permeable pavers are a widely accepted project that they have done in other places. And of course, $300,000 wouldn't cover a parking lot of pavers, but we could do a 30 or 40-foot strip through the middle of the parking lot with the $300,000. But the only caveat to that is then they want the rest of the parking lot finished. They don't want the seal coat, because obviously it's not as good as the surface, and they don't want the pavers to be tore up in 2 years. So, that's one project we could look at. We're going to meet with them tomorrow, see what other projects they have. Some of them are watershed projects, some of them are retention pond projects. So, You know, we're kind of open as far as what else may come up, but like I said, the parking lot idea has come up. And then I met with a concrete company just in passing, and we'd be looking at an additional 200,000 to concrete the rest of the parking lot out here, and then maybe run a couple of lights through. So we don't have anything in writing on that, but we felt that that may be a good project for this. But we're, you know, willing and open to whatever the the council wishes, as if they have another idea, so.
Does that have to be off a list of their qualifications?
They have to approve the project,
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Anything else further with that? You mentioned also an idea about the pond. That would be like, what's called, what, Scroggs Pond? Would that be
Yeah,
Instead
the
of the
retention pond over there.
retention pond? Is that?
You know, there's things we could do with that as far as the water base itself. And what they do with most retention ponds is it plant-based. They put plants and stuff in it, so the water, so they absorb a lot more of the water, and it just doesn't all run into the watershed. You know, they try to do things that will clean up the watersheds and not allow the pollutants and just all the runoff into it, so.
We'll move on then to continued talk about concrete roadway of Avenue L, please.
You know, Avenue L has been on the radar for a few years as one of our next roads that we were going to concrete. The hospital construction is done as well, which, you know, in order to match the improvements they did there as well, you know, I think we were able to move ahead with that project probably in what did I say, 21?
2021.
2021. We feel we'll be far enough ahead. West 10th Street will be paid off shortly thereafter. 16th will be paid off 3 years after that. So I think we'll be in good enough shape that we can start looking at that project. Our original intent, or our intent on here, is to have them bid the entire project from 20th Street all the way to 10th, but then separate out 20th to 16th. So, you know, so we know what it all comes back as. We're also looking at the possibility of having them bid from 10 to 12, and that goes past the hospital there on Avenue M, and then 12th Street and 11th Street that come down and meet from Avenue M to Avenue L, that meet Avenue L. That way, around the hospital, it would be all new concrete streets. The reason we're looking at M is that's a better turn for truck traffic and things like that, where if you look at when you turn onto L, you have that big dip and then that hill. So a lot more trucks that deliver stuff to the hospital turn on M. And the more truck traffic you get on the seal coat that we have, the more tore up those roads get. So, but we would bid out the whole project and then bid it out in 3 sections. So if bids came in really high, we could, if we had to, section it off. So, but we'd like to start that in 2021.
I think if you look back at the times when we did start the concrete project, starting with West 10th and 16th and all and Central, it's only been a blessing to the community and to those staff members that have to maintain those. Remember, 16th Street, trying to drive down there and going around the swimming pool pothole and those types of things. Sometimes we forget those early on, but if you remember those, you'll we're blessed with much better streets at this point.
It's a definite upgrade. It's something that I think is needed throughout town, and I mean, I would hope we wouldn't stop with Avenue L. Once 16th Street would fall off, we get that paid for, we look at picking up another one. You know, most of these are paid through with TIF dollars, and, you know, we're right now, we're way under our bonding capacity. We're probably at about 25%, which up to, you know, it's fairly comfortable up to about 60%, and then, you know, you kind of want to stay away from anything above that. So, but, you know, they're all these projects, we believe, are very doable and worthwhile projects for us. It just, you know, how the council feels about them and where they'd want to go with them.
One caveat to the Avenue L project, there's quite a few utilities that we have to, there's a main water, 10-inch water main that runs through there. We have to dig it up and make sure that it's okay. And if it's showing age, then we might want to look at replacing that. And the cost would be almost as much as doing the project with concrete. So there's some utilities we need to look at and make sure they're in good shape. So that's why we've got it broken into 3 sections as well.
Because it's kind of an unknown.
It's
right
an
now.
unknown, and yeah, it could raise the cost significantly, so.
From our water guy has said that when they've had to dig things up on Avenue, although the main looks to be in good shape, what they would do is dig part of it up and see what it looks like. So.
Within our packet, we have some overview maps. Are those projected up here?
Yes, that would be,
That's the transmission line. The blue line shows, I don't know if you can go a little smaller.
yeah, instead.
The blue line represents our existing transmission line. You'll see it runs right through the middle of that section, and it follows the golf course, and it's not a very desirable position for your main feeder into town. And the red line would be the new design on Highway 10, turns by the golf course, and then it takes 7th Street all the way into the substation.
Does it take easements for that?
I just got a couple more easements today, and so they're all taken care of.
Okay.
So yeah, the current line kind of runs through the middle of a section or a couple sections, where we're gonna put it back up in the right of way along the highways.
And
That's REC.
REC is there. They're going to underbuild. That's why there's some work they have to do this summer to go from there, and they're actually going to bury their lines for each of the houses along there, the farms. So we're working with REC and NIPCO in conjunction with this line.
This line.
other governmental organizations we have to work with that?
No, there'll be a new franchise documents, and DGR's working on those now, so.
Next overview map is central and lighting.
That's central. In the red is where we would propose the decorative lights, and the blue is the areas we would propose the overhead lights. So we would cover, our main street, and then we would cover, basically from Avenue H down to Avenue E.
Resurfacing would just be the main street, though.
Which one?
The main street would just be the resurfacing.
Yes,
Part of
yep,
that.
From Depot to,
from Depot to
Okay,
10th.
yeah.
then the following map.
That just shows your breakdown with the 3 sections of the Avenue L concrete project. There's 16th to 20th in blue, and 10th to 16th in red, And then the green would be the area around the hospital we're discussing.
And during that construction phase of the hospital, especially that 11th Street really got beat up, didn't it?
It did.
No
Right.
fault of anybody's, just did.
Progress.
Yeah. Council have any further questions on the upcoming projects?
I think it's exciting to see all of this. So many different things on the list, and I was able to talk to Mike a little bit just because for questions that I had, and just knowing that he feels really comfortable that we can do this through other dollars, TIF money, those kind of things, and just feel comfortable doing that. And it's just, to me, it's exciting to see this, these plans try to come together of people of what they want here in the community.
And obviously, now that we've visited about those, hopefully we'll get some feedback from our citizenry
Yep.
too, to see what their hopes are. Okay, then we'll move on. We'll move on to agenda item number 5. This is a review of the fiscal year 19 and 20 utility budgets, please.
I'm not sure how you guys want to go through these, if you want to go through them by utility, if you want to take questions, if you want to go through them line by line, which may be tedious and will be here for a long time. But most of the utility budgets, we tried to budget realistic numbers. We tried to figure out past history to predict what we're going to be doing, starting 6 months from now. So in these, what we come up with are kind of our best guesses. You're going to see some increases, probably more in expenditures than you are revenues, except for the electric revenue. But starting with the water utility, the water excise tax in the revenue part is $22,000. That basically just came out of the sales tax and was separated. That's part of the state's new watershed plan that they want to protect their watersheds. Out of that, on all of these, on the expenditure sides, we used to have a budget called the General Utility Administration. That paid for Travis's, Amber's, and Tim Erickson's salary. In getting our budgets all up to date with state standards, we had to remove that budget, so they all had to be split back out. We used to charge, for example, in the water, we used to charge the water 16% of that general utility budget, and then that was just transferred into that. Well, so we took the same percentages and put them in each budget, whatever they were charged. So you're going to see those are a little higher. You look at salaries went from 50 to 80, but that's because we added 16% of 3 people, and the fringe benefits followed. Power for the wells, you'll see on the water, is up from $12,000 to $25,000. That's because of that intergovernmental rate we talked about. Taking that away, that's how kind of skewed the electric was that we were charging ourselves for the power we were using. So now we are charging ourselves the same commercial rate we are everybody else. You'll see our electric revenues went up, and some of these, obviously each one of these lines is the increase in the utilities is electric. I don't see a whole lot in water.
We did add a new line item for most utilities, and it's building maintenance. A lot of those were coming out of supplies, and it's just easier to track if we have a line item for building maintenance. So that's one difference that sticks out.
And basically what we did was we reduced supplies mostly, and then just created a new category. So we're projecting a $11,000 revenue versus expenses in water, Some of the capital outlay projects, they're going to, Travis, you want to go over those?
Yeah, there's two more wells that'll have VFDs, variable frequency drives. It just helps the pumps run at different frequencies, different capacity instead of 100%. And these are the last two wells that'll be getting those. Also, we try and rehab wells every year. This year it's the golf course and well number 5. The number's a little higher because the golf course well is quite a bit deeper, so it costs more to have it rehabbed. And 3 mainline valves need to be replaced. There's numerous throughout the town that don't work, and instead of shutting them down and having to test the water, they can do a live where we did that this summer when we had some of the
Yep.
streets closed. So we're going to try and keep that up 2 to 4 every year and just keep going at them until we get them done. This year we have 3 planned, and then also the water tower itself needs to be inspected. That's about every every 6 years. So then every third, it's either the tower or the reservoir.
It's good to see that, just the maintenance, just kind of keep it going and.
Yeah.
For that.
And actually, our capital outlay for those projects is less than it has been in previous years, so. Any questions on water? We'll go to sanitary sewer. You'll see the revenues are quite a bit higher than previous years, and that's because of the new rate change. We plan on having the new rate go into effect on July 1st, so this will be a full year of the new rate change. And as far as expenses go, again, we charge 15% of the general utility administration to this budget. You'll see the utility service went from 40,000 to 77,000. That's just due to the intergovernmental rate. And so, when we do the following year's budget, it won't look quite as astonishing. If looking down towards the end of the wastewater budget, you'll see a principal payment of $140,000 and an interest payment of $48,000. That will be the new payment on the $3.2 million that we're going to borrow from the state revolving loan fund. So the revenue's in there, the expenses in there. We expect to still have a positive balance. And projects, Travis.
Miscellaneous equipment, there's a welder, a gate. There's just a few things that are needed throughout the year that come up. And then we like to try and budget that stuff in if we know ahead of time instead of taking it out of supplies. The E1 system controllers, there's 27 E1s throughout the town, and right now if there's a problem, a red light goes on, and it's hard to see it all the time, and it's up to the homeowner to notice it. Well, these new controllers would have a cellular feature where they would call and let Al know that, hey, there's a problem with this pump, and it doesn't back up into the homeowners. So we budgeted for those new controllers. And we talked about doing a few every year, but you can get a better price if you just do them all. So, and then 2 pumps to rebuild. He tries to pick a couple pumps every year to tear them apart, rebuild them. So, and then lab equipment, that was a pH meter and an air monitor. And then clean sewers and reline manholes. That's something we've been doing every year. We do a third of the town. So every 4 years, you're back on another area of town that you clean all the sewers. So that's been a really good project for us. It's really helped our issues that we've had in the past. Tom started that 6-7 years ago. It's been going well.
Any question on that budget? Okay, then we're gonna go to electric. Electric, not a whole lot has changed except for the interdepartmental rate is, as you can see, it went from 135 to 273 by getting rid of the intergovernmental rate. We're projecting revenues in some of the other categories to be a little less. There again, like I said, we went and looked at 5-year averages and things like that and just refigured those. And we would rather figure a little bit less in revenues than try and overinflate them to, because you should figure your revenues lower and your expenses higher. So you can come out on the positive side and there'd be no surprises. In the expense side, I don't think that there was a whole lot of change besides some of the split lines from the General Utility Administration, a couple of those lines, the building maintenance line. In this budget, electric pays for 33% of the General Utility Administration.
Travel and training was up due to Isaiah's in the apprenticeship program this year to get he'll work on 3 to 4 years to get his journeyman, so.
And we've done that with our other linemen as well. I liken it to a certification type of course that they take that.
There's book work and hands-on and then a final test every year. And then they document all their times and they get sent into the IAMU and it's through the Department of Labor, so you end up with a federally acceptable card. So.
If you look towards the bottom of the electric budget where it says principal payments, we have 2 bonds currently through those. The total of those bonds is $285,000, and the interest on those is $141,000. So, and of course, as we keep paying on those, that'll go down. But I think that was about $3.5 million, if I remember right. We're transferring out of electric to balance the general fund at about $300,000 this year. Just about $100,000 of that will be for the projected economic development director. Last year we transferred out $150,000. So if you add on the economic development director, that's $250,000. So we're in the ballpark. If you look at revenues versus expenses, we still project to have a $250,000 revenue over expenses. So that makes me feel comfortable when we go into this next phase and bringing the feeder line into town and the south loop, that when we bond for that, we'll be able to make those payments on that without any rate increases in that. And then hopefully over time, our transfer into general fund will go back down. So we're hoping to keep that surplus. Our goal is to finish off the projects for the electric without doing anything to the rates. So.
Capital outlay projects, there's money set aside to engineer the south feeder. There's money set aside for the remaining engineering for the transmission line. Because the engineering part goes into the construction phase where they follow along and track the construction and the billing and the final payment. So, and since it's a new fiscal year, went half and half. And then I'd like to initiate GIS mapping for the city, and starting with electric, since we've got most of that underground. We can start with that, and then every year add a utility is my goal. So we put some money away for that.
Right now, our mapping consists of coming upstairs here and finding the right
Paper
rolled-up
maps.
utility map and rolling it out, and hopefully everything is where it's supposed to be. So we hope to be able to computerize that and catch up to the rest of the world.
Did we not, a number of years ago, when Sioux County kind of got into GIS mapping, wasn't there some type of project with that at that point or not?
There was, I think we bought the software for it, and previous administrator and economic development director went down to Iowa State University and did some training, and it just didn't get completed.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
And if you'll continue, there's capital equipment. We're in need of a new bucket truck and a half a mini excavator. The other half will be paid for through the gas utility.
The mini excavator is a piece of equipment we don't have now, but we're using it to replace a trencher.
Trencher.
We have a
backhoe.
trencher now. We feel that price-wise, I think the mini excavator was even a little cheaper, but we felt that the mini excavator would give them more tools and more things that they can use it for than just the trencher, so. Any questions on electric? Okay. The electric revolving loan fund. We have revolving loan fund monies. I've mentioned it before. And what this money is a business or somebody that's a startup, or they need money for adding equipment or something, they can apply through our revolving loan fund. And then it's a little bit cheaper interest. So we've used it for, in Big Sue embroidery, We Care, things like that. So these are basically the payments that are going to come in over the next budget year. We do still have monies available to loan out if, somebody's looking at starting something and is interested in that. But so that's where our electric revolving loan fund is. Gas utility. Gas utility, not a lot of, besides usage increases. Our gas, our revenue is all based on sales. Sales is based on how cold it is. So, we decided, we looked at averages throughout the last 5 years, figured we get rather than taking just the previous year if it was really cold out, because that's going to, of course, make your revenue look a lot more. So that's how we got the revenues in that one. And then expenses, I don't think there was any surprises for anybody in there. The
travel training went up. There's new operator qualifications that need to be done, and more of us need to be qualified. Like, you need to be qualified in natural gas to answer the phone for a gas call. Make sure you follow the right procedure, and so they're pretty strict on some of their qualifications. So, and the prices are going up, and that's through IMU as well.
IAMU is a pretty valuable resource for our utilities. They have a lot of training and a lot of things available, and our dues that's paid into those is well worth what we pay. So we're projecting a $55,000 revenue versus expenses in that, and then we have some projects that we're looking at on there.
9th Street from Avenue H to Avenue O, we need to replace main line, and then we'll replace every service along that street as well. And there's money's budgeted from this last year, so they'll start the project in the spring and then be able to finish it as they go with the rest of the money. Every 5 years there needs to be a leak check throughout the whole town, and we hire IMU to come, and they can drive around. They have the right equipment, $40,000 equipment to do these leak checks, and they can do it in a day and a half. So, and then Highway 10, there's a section of line that needs to be replaced as well. It'll kind of tie in on Avenue O, 9th to 10th on O, and then part of Highway 10. So that's added in. And I just separated it from that other project, 9th Street.
And then they're gonna pay for the other half.
And the other half of the mini X, yep.
So, any questions on gas? Quiet bunch. Solid waste is our garbage, of course, and, so our garbage collection fees are a little more than the previous year, but kind of in line with, if you look across the board over the last 5 years, what we're projecting. If you go down to expenses, of course, we had to add the split administration in there, as well as we've had to hire a new landfill engineer, our landfill north of town. Since that was closed several years ago, we have to have the ground tested to make sure that the lining and stuff in that isn't leaking. We had an engineer that was working extremely cheap, well, what we feel was, and there was probably a reason for that. So we've had to go to a different engineer. We were getting letters from the state saying you guys aren't doing your engineering like you're supposed to. So we've gone with a different engineer. It's a little more expensive, but we're hoping, right now we're on, how often they do it?
Well, there's many tests throughout the year, spring, summer, fall.
But we're hoping to get that down to where they don't have to test as much again. Because of prior engineering that wasn't getting done properly, they've kind of said, you guys gotta do more right now.
They didn't have a proper baseline,
Yeah.
so they have to do more tests now for the next couple of years so they can get a good baseline. And then they can slowly back those off with their findings and then hopefully down to just testing every couple of years as it's a closure.
So we're projecting a $12,000 loss in our solid waste this year. Looks like last year they projected a loss as well. So we may have to look at that and if that trend continues to do some adjustments on there. Any questions on solid waste? All right, Telecommunications Administration. This is basically made up of 25% of my salary and then Christy Warner, who does the front office stuff and is very vital to me with her knowledge in the forms and everything that we have to do. That's gone up a little bit. Utility service, you can see, doubled. Otherwise, I don't see a lot of, anything that's out of line in the revenues or in the expenses, I'm sorry. And the revenues basically are split between cable and internet and telephone utility. They each pay half of the administration. So that's taken out of their budget and put into this one. Okay, and then we're going to move into telephone utility. Our telephone utility, we are actually projecting revenues down again. And we're going to continue to see a downward trend in those. Both because landline is just becoming antiquated, because the universal service fees and the cabs and everything like that gets less every year. So we're going to continue to see a downward trend in that. As far as expenses, the telephone does pay a lease payment to electric. Electric actually financed telephone years ago, and they pay a lease payment, which maybe not everybody knows about. We pay Ron out of this budget. We're not really projecting anything too much different in this one as well. We do have, the utilities are a little higher than because of that intergovernmental rate. But so we're actually projecting a $90,000 loss in telephone. That's the bad news. The good news is we'll get into cable and internet. Revenues are a little higher, we're projecting, and there again, we're just, internet revenues are going up. Everybody's on the internet. Everybody, we actually see our cable portion go down because of things like Netflix, Hulu, Sling TV, and things like that. But the one thing that they can't get rid of because of those is internet. So we look at our internet fees are going up. We pay for half of Mike Miller's salary out of this. The other half's paid through for gas. Mike kind of does, works half in each department, which seems to be working out pretty well. So don't really, I guess, see anything that jumps out at you, but there's not a lot of changes in this one either. So we're projecting a revenue surplus in this utility, which then telecom is all put into one utility. So, so if we take the 90,000 off, we see a small surplus in our telecom utility in general. Any kind of major upgrades, there's really none in this budget. So sometimes we get to talking about if we ever got to do a major upgrade or something. There's not a lot of margin in there. We also, I just got the channel cost for cable today, and everything's gone up about $2 for the basic package in total. So our margin is almost non-existent there again, just on programming costs. That's not figuring in our equipment costs and our tech costs or anything like that. So we may be having to discuss that at some point in the very near future.
Is in the next couple months? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Very near future.
Very near future. We may start those discussions in February.
Okay.
So, any questions on the telecom stuff? I mean, I know we're going through this kind of fast. Travis and I and Jacob have been looking at these for a month now, and so, I mean, we're kind of used to them. So I know it may be something that you're not used to, but if you go through them and you continue to go through them and look at them and you see something, please shoot me an email, call me, text me. I get back to my emails fairly quickly, right, John? Mm-hmm. So, but, and I'll be happy to try and help you out with anything that I can.
Mike, I just wanted to point out in the telephone, the E911 Emergency Services 911, that's just a charge to our community from the county in that regard, isn't it correct?
Correct. That's a tax that's put onto the county. It's $1 per line that goes to them, and it goes into their emergency management, running the comm center, things like that. So.
Thoughts or questions for utility budgets? Mike just mentioned he and Travis and Jacob go back and forth with all of these, looking back at last number of years, so I certainly appreciate your work in doing all of that to bring it forward to this point to the council and myself and the community.
So like I say, if you have any questions on the utility budgets, please let us know. If there's anything that you don't like or you see that, you don't like, please let us know. We try to keep everything as in line with previous years as we can. We tried to, in many cases, we've lowered revenue because we don't want to shoot for the sky in revenue and have it fall short. We would rather do some factual budgeting, and we felt we able to accomplish that with this budget. So,
agenda item number 6 is kind of an introduction to the fiscal year 19 and 20 general fund budgets.
In your packet is the general fund budgets. We've gone through those and changed things many times, and we feel that what we've put out here is a true depiction of where our general fund is going to be for the next year. We've tried to figure in everything we could that could come up, but there, as every year goes, there may be things that are not visible. So I'd encourage you over the next 2 weeks to go over the general funds. If you see anything that's out of line or anything, please let us know, or see anything you have questions on. I think we know most of these well enough that, you know, we can answer just about anything that you need to know. General fund includes legislative administration, which includes council and mayor. It includes general administration, which includes myself and some office staff members. And then we get into the police, the fire, the ambulance, the library. And I think going through the budgets with all of those entities, they've kept expenses down to where they could. So there's no huge increases. We've tried to keep everything where we can with it. And I appreciate that. It makes it easier to go through these. As we know, our general property tax dollars do not increase dramatically. You know, our valuations are lower, and there's only so many of those. In this budget, I've included the economic development person, salary and benefits and marketing. Right now, that position is going to be paid for out of the general fund. This December, we want to certify some debt in TIF to pay for part of that salary. We couldn't do it this past year, but we can do it starting going ahead, so.
So then at our next meeting, we'll go, as we just did with utilities, more in depth on, as a council.
If anybody's
and
got any
staff.
questions at the next meeting on utilities, we'll answer those. We'll then go into general fund as we did utilities tonight. And then the second meeting in February, I hope, is to set the public hearing for the 13th of March, where we approve the entire budget. So
this will keep us right on the timeline for.
it's right on the timeline. It has to be over to the county on the 15th of March. So.
Thoughts from council? Anything at this point? We'll move on then to the consent agenda. Request from Casey's, request from Dollar General Corp., and another request from Dollar General Corp. For an ownership update. Paperwork has been in place for all three of those. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Travis,
Second.
seconded by John. All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
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 Those opposed? That passes 4-0. Our next regular stated city council meeting will be Wednesday, February the 13th. Everyone's invited. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Travis. That's my good ear. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Thank you so much for your attendance this evening.